Welcome to my Cloud Application Developments presentation. My topic chosen was Cloud Data Storage and Visualization, Microsoft versus Amazon, a comparison between Amazon's DynamoDB database and QuickSight for data visualization versus Microsoft's Azure Cosmos DB and Power BI data visualization programs. I started with a tutorial because I didn't want to go rushing in without kind of knowing what I'd be doing with my own data. So I did a tutorial on Volcano data, which was online, and this was setting up the Azure Cosmos DB and set up a Colm G Cloud CA database in Cosmos DB. The big thing was trying to find something to connect from Cosmos into Power BI. But it was relatively straightforward. I found this data migration tool, and it was extremely easy to use. I had to use some access keys from Azure to set the connections up together. And this is the data migration tool, which here it is in live form. So you get a welcome page. Just click new import there. Welcome page. You put in your source information. As you can see, I think I did this on here. Source information would have been my actual CSV file, which happens to be the Volcano one on that screenshot. And click in your target information, which is a connection string and a collection and a partition key, which I think I have on this screenshot here. So again, bringing in the account keys, using country as a partition key, and it was recommended to use 1000 as the throughput on the tutorial that I used. And very quick, 41 seconds in fact, to import the data into Cosmos DB, which was great. There is the Volcano attributes with the partition key country and all the countries in that. This is pulling in the data into Power BI, and it's again very straightforward to do. You just click on Get Data. There you go. So it brings up some of the services that is already native in there, and you just go to Azure Cosmos DB and connect, and it's as simple as that really. Just cancel that for now. There was also 5 errors that I found at the bottom, which were null values. You would often get null values in the data you bring over, and so it's quite easy just to get rid of them with a little bit of practice. Transform data. That brings up a Power Query editor. Click on replace values, and you'd put in null and replace it with maybe unknown or whatever you'd like to put in there, and it's as simple as changing in that. And finally, just an example of some data visualization from the Volcano tutorial, picking the elevation, latitude, longitude, and Volcano. I forget what that exact field is now, but picking them, bringing them in, and you can see that it comes up with certain data if you hover over it in the program, and I may be able to show you that in my own data, hopefully. And then once you've finished, quite easy again, you just publish to Power BI into my own workspace, and it goes up to the cloud to powerbi.com. So very simple to use. Found the whole process really good, coming from Cosmos DB, using the data migration tool to put the data in to the database, and just simply, I think it was 3 clicks bringing it into Power BI, And once the data is transformed, it's very easy to then produce some impressive visuals. This is my official charts, UK charts, 1952 to 2020. That's the report dashboard brought up into powerbi.com and hosted on the cloud. And you can see there, nice visuals. So if you go there, for example, quite big seller, Justin Bieber, and that's his combined sales through the history of the UK charts. His physical sales in the light blue, his dark blue is streaming, and the orange is his combined. And if I just click on, for example, 10cc, the data changes to show you the word cloud now just showing 10cc, the UK, where they're from. 10cc had 3 number ones. And it's very user friendly. And I made visuals for each decade. For example, 1955. You'll see the artists change to just the 55 artists, and there are the most successful songs from that year and the record labels. So moving on to Amazon and DynamoDB, I tried to create a database. It was quite simple, again, just a partition key and a sort key, artist song title. As you can see, I brought in an artist and song title originally, but then I had issues with trying to transfer the data over into QuickSites, as I did with, for example, Cosmos DB into Power BI. I looked at Amazon Redshift and creating clusters through the Amazon documentation, but it seemed very confusing. Lambda functions, I read quite a few tutorials on them and almost set something up there all from scratch, but it was just proving to be quite confusing for me. So eventually I came back to S3 bucket and easily created a bucket, UK charts folder, and finally bringing in the data, again UK number ones, and just bringing them into the S3 bucket. I thought it'd be very easy from there just to bring the data in from the S3 bucket into QuickSight, but this was the most frustrating part of the whole process. Just finding a tool that was comparative to the data migration tool from Microsoft, and I just couldn't find one in the end. We see now we moved on to Zapier, and it seemed quite straightforward. I went for Amazon DynamoDB with S3, and for a new bucket, whenever a new bucket went in, which would have been my database, or data, sorry, going into creating an item in DynamoDB, which would be then the database. Again, setting it up with keys, access keys, which was again straightforward. And the bucket was found, which I thought, great, here we're going to get some success here. So here you can see the Zapier integration. So a trigger to find the new bucket, test trigger there, and we found a bucket. So my bucket is being found within S3. The problem happens then when I go into the create an item in Amazon DB, and here you can see that it's trying to find the UK charts table in my DynamoDB, which is there, UK charts. But whenever I try and insert data, it's not giving me the option that I'm looking for, which is the actual CSV file. So I feel like I was getting very, very close to it, but it was taking quite a bit of time, and I decided to move on at that point. By this stage, I'd actually decided, instead of bringing in the data into DynamoDB, the deadline was getting increasingly closer, and so I manually made some data, as I'll show you now. So this is just a row of 16 number one songs from various years, and quite easy to make manually. Literally just typing in some values, and you can insert as you go along. So string, I could put in year, 1988. Sorry, tab that, 1988, and you just save it, and there you go. It goes in. So I decided, just for the purposes of moving on with the project, I did that manually and created an account of Panoply. Analyze your Amazon DynamoDB data in Amazon QuickSight. So again, I thought this would be a very good solution to have, but once I'd set up the DynamoDB side of it, I couldn't actually find anywhere where I could get to connect it to the QuickSight. I tried connect to BI tool and was unsuccessful again. So again, with deadline approaching, moved on to a program called Stitch. But again, I couldn't find a connection to QuickSight, and that was just a never-ending problem, seemingly. So in the end, I decided to set up the QuickSight account, move on again with the process. So just out of shot there is an, as you see, Athena, Redshift I think is there, and S3 is just behind this. I would have clicked S3, Analytics, Data Source. It recognized my buckets, but unfortunately it was looking for a .json file, which I just couldn't. Again, it felt like I was got to the last step again. I need to be let down at the last second. So I moved on just basically to upload a CSV, the CSV, straight from the desktop. Actually got all 1364 in the end into QuickSight, just to show some visualizations from here. I did notice that, as you saw earlier with the map function in Power BI, it's quite impressive to look at and very easy to use in QuickSight. Now, we'll caveat this by saying I've less experience in QuickSight and I didn't have as much time as I'd hoped for, so I'm not sure this is definitely not working, but it's coming up as basically an error saying it can't support the location yet. Now, I did find at the bottom of this list I have dual countries. It would be maybe Rihanna from Barbados, and she is doing a song with Paul McCartney from the UK, so it would be Barbados, UK, and it's not recognising dual countries at the moment. Now, maybe there's a fix around for that, and I'd probably find it in time, but just another thing where Power BI kind of won the comparison on that. Power BI and Cosmos DB were a lot more easy to use than DynamoDB and QuickSight. A lot more impressive, a lot quicker, user-friendly. The tutorials on Microsoft side were far easier than the documentation on the Amazon side of things, and I came to the conclusion that I would recommend the Microsoft over Amazon personally. But again, I would finish by saying, if I had more experience with both beforehand, I mean, I had some prior knowledge to Power BI beforehand. If I had more experience with both, I think I'd probably like to see if my opinion would change on that, because it's not an exact fair opinion, I don't think, at the moment. And to finish, I would say the Microsoft suite is more impressive than the Amazon Cloud Suite. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for listening, and thanks for all the help. Bye bye.